Welcome back to another English lesson. In this English lesson, we are going to watch a news clip about the war between Ukraine and Russia turning 3 years old. But before we get into the English lesson, I want to hear your opinion. It seems there are peace talks going on between my president in the United States, President Trump, and the Russian President Putin. But Zelensky is not at these talks. It doesn't seem like he is involved with the peace talks as much as President Trump. My question to you is, do you think the United States is playing too big of a part in these peace talks? I mean, I don't know how President Trump is talking to President Putin without including President Zelensky. In this English lesson, you will learn the verb sparking. You will learn what it means to hold out hope. We have a couple different ways we will use the word mark. We will talk about the difference between a vigil and rallies. We will talk about a place in Massachusetts called the Boston Common. We will talk about what an aggressor is. We will talk about what it means to resign and so much more. Before we watch the news clip, could you please hit that like button? It helps other English learners find the lesson. And if this is your first time here, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss another English lesson.
3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, sparking a full-on war.
And as the fighting enters its fourth year right now, many still hold out hope for peace between both nations. NBC 10's Manoj Kwangwari, live by Boston Common with the latest on the efforts to stop the fighting.
First up, we have this verb sparking. For each of the terms, I will have a picture. I will have the official definition, and I will use it in a sentence. Sparking means causing something to begin or happen. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 sparked widespread international protests. If something is international, it means it involves two or more nations. Hold out hope. That can be a tricky English phrasal verb. It means to continue believing that something you want or desired will happen, even if it seems unlikely. So you're really hoping for something, but it might not happen. Despite the ongoing conflict or war or battle, many Ukrainians hold out hope for peace.
3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, sparking a full-on war.
And as the fighting enters its fourth year right now, many still hold out hope for peace between both nations. NBC 10's Manoj Kwangwari, live by Boston Common with the latest on the efforts to stop the fighting.
Well, because this marks the 3-year mark, many people all over the country are going to be engaging in protests, vigils, and rallies.
We have quite a few different ways we use Mark in English. In fact, I have a friend whose name is Mark, but this is very different. We are going to talk about how to use Mark as a verb, and it means to observe or watch or remember an event. On February 23rd, 2025, Bostonians, those are people who live in the city of Boston, Bostonians gathered to mark the third anniversary of the war in Ukraine. That is the way you use it as a verb. Now we are going to use it as a noun, like the 3-year mark means the point at which 3 years have passed since an event began. The conflict reached its 3-year mark in February 2025, causing people to hope for peace. Yeah, take a look at that protest. You can see a lot of Ukrainian flags, and on that billboard, it says 3 years of Ukraine. AI can't exactly spell correctly. I think one day soon AI will be able to spell in English, but right now it's just not there yet. You can hold a vigil. A vigil is a noun, and it means events where people stay in a place quietly to show support or remembrance, like remembering something. And just like the picture, you might hear of a candlelight vigil. And here is a sentence using vigils. Cities worldwide held vigils to honor those affected by the war.
Well, because this marks the 3-year mark, many people all over the country are going to be engaging in protests, vigils, and rallies. Here in Boston, the same will follow, with the organizers of a rally planned for this afternoon telling us it's their way of joining in the call to end what they believe is death and destruction in Ukraine.
In Boston, they held a rally to mark the 3rd anniversary of the war beginning in Ukraine. Let's make that plural, rallies, and talk about what it means. Large public gatherings to show support for a cause. A rally in the Boston Common drew hundreds calling for peace in Ukraine. If you don't know what the Boston Common is, don't worry, we will talk about it really soon. Organizers, it is a noun. Organize is the verb. Organizers are people who plan and arrange events. You may hire an organizer for your wedding. They are going to plan everything and make sure everything works out really well. Organizers from the Ukrainian Culture Center of New England led the Boston March. And I believe one of the women they interview in the news clip could be from Ukraine. She does have a little bit of an accent.
Well, because this marks the 3-year mark, many people all over the country are going to be engaging in protests, vigils, and rallies. Here in Boston, the same will follow, with the organizers of a rally planned for this afternoon telling us it's their way of joining in the call to end what they believe is death and destruction in Ukraine. And you can take a look at this video. It was much like the gathering in the Common yesterday, but today is the actual 3-year mark of that war. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky saying the war has claimed the lives of tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. Russia's Ministry of Defense has not released updated numbers, but it's believed they too have lost tens of thousands of people. The U.S. and Russia have resumed high-level talks to bring peace to the area, but Ukraine is not at the negotiating table. Zelensky has told NBC he would not accept a peace deal if he's not allowed at that table, and many we spoke to at yesterday's rally agree with him.
We still need to stop the aggressor, because otherwise, when we are meeting them halfway, we are encouraging their aggression. We are here to show that it is impossible to make a compromise with someone whose only agenda is to kill and destroy you.
A long one here, the call to end war. Maybe you have only heard the verb call when talking about a phone, but this one is a little different. A strong demand to stop the conflict. Speakers at the rally emphasized. That is sometimes a hard word to say. Speakers at the rally emphasized the important call to end the war in Ukraine. I told you we would talk about the Boston Common. It's a central public park, meaning anybody can go there if it's public. If it's private, not everyone can go. A central public park in downtown Boston. If you have ever heard of Central Park in New York City, Boston has the Boston Common. It's almost the same thing. A big green place in the middle of a big city. Demonstrators met at the Boston Common to show they stand with Ukraine. This one is not fun. Claimed the lives. That term means resulted in the deaths of people. In the news clip, they say this war has claimed tens of thousands of lives on both sides. I have heard that it actually has claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. I hope that's not true. The ongoing conflict has claimed the lives of countless civilians. We will talk about civilians a little later, actually next, but countless means you can't even count the number. It's like a lot.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky saying the war has claimed the lives of tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. Russia's Ministry of Defense has not released updated numbers, but it's believed they too have lost tens of thousands of people. The U.S. and Russia have resumed high-level talks to bring peace to the area, but Ukraine is not at the negotiating table.
Civilians. These are people not in the army or navy or military. The official definition says people not in the armed forces. Civilians have also been affected by war, unfortunately. Resumed. Not to be confused with resume, that's spelled almost the same way without the D, but resumed means started again after stopping. Maybe you took a break from your English learning, but now you have resumed learning English. Peace talks resumed, but they didn't last long.
The U.S. and Russia have resumed high-level talks to bring peace to the area, but Ukraine is not at the negotiating table. Zelensky has told NBC he would not accept a peace deal if he's not allowed at that table, and many we spoke to at yesterday's rally agree with him.
We still need to stop the aggressor, because otherwise, when we are meeting them halfway, we are encouraging their aggression. We are here to show that it is impossible to make a compromise with someone whose only agenda is to kill and destroy you.
And perhaps a huge announcement came yesterday in a press conference. The Ukrainian president said he is willing to resign from his post if it means peace in Ukraine. We'll, of course, stick on that. But for right now, we're live here in Boston.
It seems like President Trump is at the negotiating table. President Putin is at the negotiating table, but I don't think President Zelensky has been invited yet to the negotiating table. The definition is simply a place where leaders talk to find an agreement. Both countries returned to the negotiating table to try to stop the war. I know in that picture there was an actual table there, but the negotiating table might actually happen over Zoom or over Skype. Sometimes President Trump won't say that President Putin was the aggressor, but most people feel that he was the aggressor. Let's talk about what the aggressor means: the person or country that starts a fight or war. Many people believe Russia is the aggressor in this war. A compromise. Now, compromise can be a verb, but here we are going to talk about the noun form. It's a decision where both sides give up something to agree. For example, Ukraine might have to give up some land to make Russia happy. It also sounds like Ukraine might have to give up some resources to make the United States happy. Leaders are trying to find a compromise to stop the fighting. The next term I would like to teach you is agenda. We have a couple different ways we use that word, but it was used like this in the news clip: a list of topics to talk about or plan. The meeting's agenda included ways to help people in Ukraine. Just yesterday, the French President Macron came to the United States to visit President Trump. I'm sure they had an agenda of things to talk about. Resign. President Zelensky said he would resign to bring peace to Ukraine. Let's talk about what resign means: to quit a job or position. Some officials decided to resign because of the war. A post. That means a job, especially in government. So it seems like President Zelensky would resign from his post to get peace in Ukraine. Congratulations, you made it to the end of another English lesson. Each week I do a bonus lesson for channel members. If you would like to become a channel member, go ahead and check the comment section. There you will find a link. I know there are a lot of English teachers on YouTube and you chose to watch me. Thank you so much. If you're looking for more English lessons, right down there is an English lesson YouTube thinks you're going to like. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.